Listen, they're going to try and use this to demoralize us. I don't think we should. I think we should wait, see how this plays out. We're not going to win everything. But Alito called this an act of judicial hubris.
Now let's bring our panel back to discuss. There's actually other things that went on during the day, except for the not only the presidential address to the joint session of Congress, or as we're calling it today, the State of the Union, even though it's not. Let's bring back our panel, Chris Hand, Debra Leah, to talk about several of the things going on. One of which came across early this morning: the ultra MAGA right-wing Supreme Court went against Trump yet again. Now, I only say that in this context. I want you to watch this clip of Senator Chuck Schumer talking about the out-of-control MAGA Supreme Court. Watch this.
Friday's ruling is yet another warning that this MAGA court is going off the deep end, aligning itself more and more with the most extreme elements of the hard right. They have struck down freedom of choice, environmental protections, affirmative action, fair redistricting, gun safety, and more. The MAGA
we can cut it off there, Glenn. That's enough of that. Basically, the point is the MAGA Supreme Court out of control, siding against President Trump again in a 5-4 decision, which had 2 of the conservative justices joining the liberal justices. The Supreme Court rejected President Trump's emergency request to freeze nearly $2 billion in foreign aid on Wednesday. Basically, they said the lower court judge, hey, you have to explain what you mean. But it is, in effect, a loss to President Trump. I think the main thing here that I would like to get in touch with, Chris, if you could pick up on this, how much of a MAGA court is it if they go against what Trump and the MAGA movement want? Is it really that, or was it a little bit of hyperbole there from the libs?
Yeah, I mean, sign me up for packing the court at this point. We need more conservatives on there. No, listen, they're going to try and use this to demoralize us. I don't think we should. I think we should wait, see how this plays out. We're not going to win everything. But Alito called this an act of judicial hubris and imposed a $2 billion penalty on American taxpayers. I don't think many American taxpayers are going to like this, especially if you watched the speech last night. They noted that the admin has not challenged Judge Ali's initial order, only the deadline. There's still more to be written about this story. Now, the left is going to try and dunk on us and say that this is a huge win. And okay, let them have one. We're doing a lot, and we're doing it very, very fast. This stuff is going to happen, and we just need to make sure that we don't get blackpilled.
Yeah, Debra, considering the fact that the libs call the Trump administration dictatorial, fascist, whatevers, how many dictators around the world do you know that get to butt heads with their legislation and their judicial branch and also lose sometimes? Does that happen in a normal dictatorship, or is that just this particular quote-unquote dictatorship?
You know, I'm going to have to ask Putin and get back to you on that one. Perhaps Zelensky. I'm kidding. We're kidding. But something that really bothered me, I have a degree in government and politics. You know, something that really upset me about this is the fact that Chuck Schumer is calling it the MAGA Supreme Court, because the Democrats always complain Trump's dividing the country, the MAGA Republicans are dividing the country. It was Joe Biden who said that you dirty MAGA trash, whatever it was, called us all trash last year. And the Supreme Court are arguably one of the last institutions in the United States of America that is nonpartisan. Supreme Court justices have no affiliations with either party. They can be conservative, they can be liberal, but they are not Republican and Democrat. And for Chuck Schumer, who knows that, he's a lifelong career politician, aka has done nothing useful for the American people his entire time in the government, especially for the Jewish community, which is just despicable and disgraceful. But regardless of that, it's really disingenuous and it's harmful. They want to talk about Trump's destroying democracy. Well, how are you protecting democracy by trying to politicize one of the last non-political institutions that should remain nonpartisan?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Chuck Schumer there, the minority leader in the Senate. The Senate, speaking of, on Monday night had a vote on whether or not they were going to keep dudes out of women's sports. Deb, I want to start with you here. The procedural move needed to get 60 votes in the Senate. They only got 51 to 45 with, I think, like 4 to 6 absences. But they are no longer going to pursue, or at least in this iteration, keeping transgender women, I never get those correct straight, dudes, out of female sports. Deb, where do you think the American people are? Well, actually, we have the answer to this, but just you anecdotally, where are the American people on this issue, and do you think this is a winning argument for Dems?
Absolutely not. I grew up as an athlete. I played a lot of sports, and there's a reason why men cannot compete in women's sports. And we fought very well, it wasn't me, a little bit before my time, but women fought very hard to have women's only sports, women's leagues, women basketball, the WNBA. While I've never watched it and you couldn't pay me to watch it, I think that women who are extremely talented in basketball, I went to University of Maryland, which is D1. I had a lot of friends who were extremely talented basketball players. I think there should be a space for them to compete. Recreational sports and teams and, teamwork are extremely important developmental skills for young children and people of all ages to learn. And so to limit that and to make people uncomfortable, specifically with locker rooms, especially for young women who have a lot of body insecurities, to force them to change in front of a man who has every single DNA cell being a biological man, it's so wrong. And for anybody to go against that, I want them to explain to their children one day why they chose not to protect women and why they chose to put women in harm's way. They have to answer for that one day. And everything Democrats support is a losing issue at this point.
Debra, I'm concerned that you besmirching the WNBA is going to unleash a backlash on X, and I think all 9 of their fans might tweet at you, which could be pretty bad. Chris, just to get to some poll numbers here, in May of 2023, Gallup did a poll in which 69% of Americans, both conservative, liberal, and all across the board, said, yeah, don't keep letting men compete in women's sports. In 2025, 2 years later, the numbers are not going in the direction of the libs. It went from 69% to 79%. In other words, 8 out of 10 Americans agree on this. You can't get 8 out of 10 Americans to agree on what type of pizza topping to put on, except they do agree on this. What do you think the backlash is going to be with Dems come their upcoming elections, and how do you think they're going to handle this?
I mean, this is another one of those 80-20 issues that Trump has been championing and killing, right? And I think you're going to see 8 to 10 Senate Democrats have races where they could potentially lose. You have a lot of Senate Democrats that are going to be in purplish states or more conservative states that are going to have an issue because of this, because parents don't want boys competing against their girls. They don't want them in the locker room. I have 2 daughters. I want to look out for their safety. I want them to have fun. I want them to enjoy themselves. But if you're going to be competing against a man, no, like we're not going to do that. I'll probably just end up taking you out of sports. Luckily, I live in the great state of Tennessee where we don't have to worry about this insanity so much. But I do worry about the kids that are off in Washington and Oregon and Maine and New York and the liberal hellholes that they are. That this problem isn't going away anytime soon. And you're going to see a lot of these Democrats really double down until hopefully Trump pulls some federal funding so that way they can feel it where it hurts.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see if they try to continue, as Congresswoman AOC wants them to do, down the path of convincing Americans of things that are objectively crazy. Debra, Leah, Chris Hand, thank you guys so much for joining us on our panel today. We didn't get to that Social Security doling out money to dead people, but maybe we'll get to that I don't know, tomorrow or the next day. But it is a fascinating story. Coming up next, we've got a fantastic clip from Alex Clark's Cultural Apothecary podcast. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this.